everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision. I'm your host, Keely. You're joined alongside Shotgun Spratling and Ryan Abraham. Today, we will be previewing Arizona State. USC is going to take on the Sun Devils in the Coliseum on Saturday at 12:30 start, which is nice, not in the dark hours of Saturday night. And we're going to be talking about our reactions to Colin Cowherd. If you haven't seen it yet, it's a must-see. You got to see. He came on a special Tuesday edition of Tunnel Vision, and he burned the house down. He didn't hold any punches. He had some opinions. We're going to play one of his clips later today so we can talk about it. And then we're going to talk about USC's lack of a run game. That seems to be something that USC offense needs in the game of college football. And Shotgun, you actually talked to Neil Callaway, USC's offensive line coach, about the lack of run game, but he seems to think that they've had a successful run game. So we'll get into that. And, of course, we will take your questions. I believe we are trimulcasting on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Periscope.
Got you on Periscope right here, yeah.
Nice job. Ryan will be monitoring Periscope, Shotgun on YouTube. I will be monitoring Facebook. Get your comments in, your questions. We will answer them. Yeah, that does it for my spiel. How are you doing, guys? It's a Thursday. How are you feeling?
Doing all right. It's been a busy week after we came back from Utah. We did the extra show, like Keely said, with Colin. I've done like 17 podcasts, I think, this week. We both wrote stories about the run game. I did an advanced stats thing, and Shotgun interviewed Neil Callaway. I still have a story coming up with Tim Drevno, who's the, run game coordinator, right? So he's the running backs coach. So lots of focus on this run game or lack thereof this week.
Yeah, the run game's been struggling, and that was kind of the key for them was to try to get something going. Now Utah was going to be tough to get the running game going because they have one of the better defenses against the run, but they just couldn't really get anything there. I mean, they really struggled in that area, and that made them one-dimensional. And I mean, they were 3 and out almost every drive, and it was very difficult for them to get anything going because they couldn't get any yards on first down a lot of times. And even when they did, a couple times they got 6 or 7 yards on a first down run, things would stall out from there. They just couldn't back up. They couldn't have successful runs one after another a couple of times to kind of move the chains and give that defense a little bit of a break because the defense was out there for over 80 plays, and they needed some rest because, especially with how banged up they are. You had some key guys out. So you had a guy like Christian Rector, had played so many snaps. I mean, he was one shy of his career high as far as total snaps for the game. He misses a sack. He misses sacks on back-to-back plays. He ends up getting a sack on the first one, but you could just tell it was fatigue because he had not come out of the game at that point. And that was late in the first half. So, you could tell that, he was doing everything. And Malik Dorton had a couple times where he was in the backfield and they just couldn't get the sacks where they were getting a lot of pressure early in the game. Second half, it wasn't so much that. I mean, Hunter Echols played 7 plays in the first half. Hunter Echols is on their pass rush unit. They bring him in on 3rd and long. He didn't play any in the second half because they had no 3rd and longs.
No.
Utah did not have a third. Utah's only 3rd and long was a 3rd and goal from the 11-yard line. That was the only time they had a 3rd and long play, and they scored on that play as well. So
of course they did.
That was the only opportunity besides, I guess, the kneel down. The final play of the game was like a 3rd and 18 because they lost 5 yards and kneeled down twice. But no true 3rd and long in the second half, so they never even got that pass rush unit on. So, in a game where you're struggling to get some guys rotated in there because of how much, or you're wanting to get more guys rotated because of how much you're playing, you don't even get these extra, your special packages and stuff in there because of you're not being able to force some 3rd and longs. You're not able to stop those 1st and 2nd downs.
And I think the big thing, and we're going to talk about this, we'll preview Arizona State. I had Chris Cartman on my podcast yesterday. Some really interesting stats and data from that game we'll talk about. But we talked about going into Utah. USC had to sustain some drives. Like, what was Colorado? It was a second quarter, explosion of offense. 200 yards in the second quarter, 134 yards the rest of the game. And that's exactly the opposite of what happened. And we'll talk when we do the Arizona State stuff. You need to sustain drives against the Sun Devils. They don't give up big plays. So we'll talk about all that a little bit later, I'm sure, or whenever you want to, Keely.
We can get into it now. I mean, if you haven't listened to Ryan's podcast, podcast with Arizona State. It's very insightful. I think the biggest thing for me was it sounds like ASU's defense is kind of a bad matchup for USC's offense in the sense that you're going to have to sustain drives. They're going to bring confusing blitzes. They're going to try and confuse USC's offensive line, which I don't think is that hard to do at this point. And so, USC, if they're able to have those big plays, kind of take advantage maybe of the secondary, they can get it done against ASU. Maybe it's a Colorado thing where at the end of the day you just out talent them. But it seems like this is going to be a difficult matchup for USC.
Yeah. Do you want to say something first?
T. Martin said, he was asked about Arizona State. He said you'll face some similar stuff as you saw with Texas and Washington State as far as a lot of slanting and different things on the defensive line, different games. USC's actually played much better in the pass protection and picking up those communication issues they had early in the season. They've done a good job of not letting free rushers come free and that thing. It's just when in the run game they've really struggled. I mean, the pass game has been much better the last few games, last 3 games I would say. They've given up a couple sacks, but I mean one of the sacks on JT was he was in the pocket for a good 5 seconds and it finally broke down on him. He just couldn't find a target. But they only gave up 2 sacks in this game. I think they gave up 1 against Colorado. So they're playing the pass protection has been much better as of recent. It's just the problem has been the run game. They're not getting out in front. Guys are getting penetration. They're getting in the backfield. You're not getting out in front of runs. When you try to run screens and stuff, you're not getting out in space and blocking guys. That's where there's been issues more than the pass protection. So it'll be kind of interesting how that USC offensive line matches up, trying to pick up those blitzes and different things like that. On the other side, I mean, the Arizona State offense doesn't really scare you at all. I mean, they have 3 good players. You got Manny Wilkins, who's solid. He's not great. I mean, he's
not had the greatest year. I thought he was going to be a lot better than he was. But he's been around a long time, but he's not.
Yeah, so is Jake Browning. He's not a great quarterback either. I mean, he is a noodle arm. But you have N'Keal Harry, who's a star, and Eno Benjamin is a budding star, I would say. I mean, he was an All-American coming out of high school as well. So those 2 guys are really good. The rest of it's kind of I mean, it tells you a little bit about their team that Roy Hemsley went from USC, couldn't get any playing time at USC, and now he's in the mix in their starting lineup. I know he started a couple games for them. I'm not sure the last couple, but that tells you a little bit about the standing of their offensive line and stuff. So I don't think there's a ton of talent on that offense. On that offense. So if they can slow down N'Keal Harry and Benjamin, which you said with Colorado, if they can slow down Laviska and they can slow down McMillan, which is exactly what they did, then they could have success. I could see this defense having success as well, even though you're going to be out a couple of star players there once again.
Yeah. As far as injury updates go, Helton essentially said that Cam Smith is out for Saturday due to a knee injury and his hamstring injury. Cam actually got his knee drained a couple days ago and had some PRP injections. So that has been something that has been lingering. You can kind of see it when he practices. He has a sleeve on his knee. He's pretty gimpy. So the goal is to get him back for Oregon State. But obviously you're out your leading tackler. But they do have Palaie, who is filling in pretty nicely for USC.
Sure.
Marvell Tell has been a little bit on the DL with an AC sprain, so that's something to watch for. Talanoa Hufanga got a little sick at the end of practice yesterday, so also something to watch for. Just a lot of bumps and bruises as far as the defense goes right now.
Yeah, and I think to your point, Shotgun, I'm not too worried about the defense. It's usually just the position the offense has put them in, and to me, this is going to come down to the USC offense, and I think there's a lot of stuff to unpack here. One, when Keely mentioned the exotic blitzes and stuff like that, it's really, I think, the first time you're going to see some of the stuff that we saw against Texas and Stanford and Washington State. So we're going to find out, is the pass protection better, or they just haven't faced people that were trying to confuse them as much up front? I think I agree with you. I think it's better. I'm not expecting them to have a lot of just 4 guys rushing and 2 of them aren't being blocked by 7 of the people because they're confused. Probably less of that. But really, what you need to look at, this isn't an advanced stat. This is just look at the score. Arizona State has not given up more than 28 points this year. So they played Washington, they played Michigan State, they played Stanford, they played Colorado. This is just not a defense that's going to give up a lot. They got 3 freshman defenders that have played more than 350 snaps. Merlin Robinson being one of them, who USC kind of backed off of from Sarah High School here. No one in the country has any freshman defender playing that many snaps in a game, and Arizona State has 3 of them. So there's a lot of youth on the defense, but it's very active. And they've changed things up with Danny. It's Danny Gonzalez. Did I get his name?
I think so, yeah.
I think it's Danny Gonzalez. So he came over
Because
from.
he just got fined by the Pac-12. So
He did get it fined, yeah, because of comments about the pass interference stuff. But he comes over from San Diego State. Changed a lot about this defense. They're a defense this year. They've given up, best in the nation, I believe, 3 plays of 40 yards or more. So in the last 3 years, they were like worst. So they've basically gone from worst to first in that category. They make you, this is a defense that will make you sustain drives. The exact opposite of what USC is able to do. So USC is they just rely on the big play. Arizona State doesn't give up a lot of big plays. Every game they've lost has been by exactly 7 points. So this looks like it's going to be a game in the 20s, a game that's really close. And can USC come up with a 10-play drive where they run the ball 5 times and pick up yards and able to score? I'm just not sure. We haven't seen it for the last couple weeks, but it's not set up really well. Oh, and by the way, you might have your third-string quarterback who hasn't really taken a meaningful snap in practice since the 3rd week of fall camp. So
That too.
there's a lot to unpack here with this Arizona State team. Like, look at Herm Edwards. I made as much fun of him as anybody. But talking to Chris Cartman and saying, like, this team actually is going to be pretty good. I think he's got a good staff around him. And the defense with Gonzalez there from San Diego State, it's a lot better. I mean, they haven't given up a whole lot of points, so they don't give up big plays. This is a real test for this USC offense, especially if it's Jack Sears at quarterback.
And this is an ASU team that sticks around into the 4th quarter. And we know how USC does with teams that stick around. They've gotten away with it pretty much throughout the season, but you never know. So I don't think ASU is a world beater, but I think their specific strengths are hard for USC given what this team lacks.
And Manny Wilkins had a really terrible game. They played Thursday night against Stanford, and he called himself out. It's one of those things where you had a couple extra days because it was a Thursday game. He knows he played poorly. I kind of get the feeling, my gut is he's going to come out and play better. But my focus would not be, if you're a USC fan on this, what's the USC defense going to do? Like, they'll be fine. Like, they'll do their job. They'll hold Arizona State to enough that if the offense does their job, USC will win. I'm just not sure the offense is going to be able to do its job.
Yeah, you got to question what they're going to be able to do if Jack Sears is the quarterback. How does that change the game plan? Clay Helton said they would simplify things. Brian Ellis said the same thing. How much do they simplify things? Because it looked like Utah knew everything that was coming.
Yeah.
So how do you simplify but also change enough to keep Arizona State off kilter from what you're going to run? That's a big question. Is Jack Sears ready? That's a big question. We all thought he was the number 2 coming out of camp, but apparently he was not doing enough in the classroom. The football classroom, film study, different things like that to prove himself to be the number 2 quarterback. Thought Matt Fink looked good when he came in the game and did some nice things. I mean, even breaking 3 ribs and still continued to play. He still took off on another run after that, which is the part where I would have been like, I would not. If my ribs are hurting, I'd be like, all right, we're just gonna throw this one away.
That's pure adrenaline right there.
Yeah, we're gonna live to fight another day on this play. We're just throw this away rather than scrambling for it. But he did a nice job. So can Jack Sears come in and do the same thing? And how much reps has he even got this week? That's the thing. I mean, Clay Helton said, I asked him, how do you get better in the run game? He said a lot of the same things he said in the Sunday teleconference. I said, well, how do you get better at those one-on-one matchups? He said, well, we were hypercritical of the film. We actually spent more time on the film and less time practicing on Monday. Now, Monday is a glorified walkthrough as far as we know. So it's not like you're going out there in full pads and beating up on each other or anything. But any extra reps you can give a first-time starting quarterback are reps he should get.
Yeah.
And then on Tuesday, you take out the final team period, which is more reps he could be getting. It just seems very strange at this time of the season and at this juncture where you're potentially starting a new quarterback to do that. Why would you do that?
I don't get that at all. I don't think anyone asked specifically about that. I forgot. But they basically on Tuesday, it was a little bit shorter of a practice. It was all Jack Sears as that's the full day, full pads practice. So it was a little bit shorter. I thought it was pretty short. And Keely's like, it was shorter, but not like significantly. But the main part is at the end of practice, they do a 10-minute period that's full team 11 on 11. sometimes it's ones versus ones or ones versus twos, but you get an opportunity, for the starters to go against real defenders and just kind of go at it. And they skip that completely. So Jack Sears hasn't had any of those this year. And then the one day he gets a chance to, it's gone. They don't do it. And so I no idea why that would be the case.
Yeah, it's baffling for sure. But we are getting a couple questions as far as, well, what does this mean if Helton is still the coach? We aren't going anywhere. People are really, really down on Helton, which can lead us to what Colin Cowherd said on our show Tuesday. I'm going to play this clip really quick.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you were Clay Helton and you watch this, you'd be like crestfallen, right? But the whole premise of this thing today is we all know it's over, right? We all know it's over. You have to admit is you're grabbing fool's gold here. It's not working.
So that was on Tuesday. Basically, Colin called it over for Clay Helton and company.
Do you want to show his tweet too? Or
After Saturday's loss to Utah, Colin said, job opening in Pac-12 Conference head football coach. Interested candidates, please send resumes to Lynn Swan. So definitely not holding back any punches. But as far as we see the team every day, we see these guys every day. What do you think about the trajectory of the season now that you have a loss to Utah that didn't look too pretty?
I mean, I said it during the game that you pretty much know everything you need to know about this coaching staff. It's not like they're going to – I mean, they might get better. They could still get worse,
a little bit, yeah.
But it's not a national championship caliber staff. I mean, just by the adjustments in game aren't there enough. The preparation going in just isn't there enough. So, as this staff is, as it is constructed now, it's not going to win a national championship. So there's going to have to be changes. Now, the question is, does the administration see that? Does the administration say, that's what we care about? We care about winning national championships, or do they care?
Yeah.
Is it just football's going to make money regardless? It's going to make a lot more money if you win more, but you're going to have to invest more money, and then there's power there that ends up going towards the football program. Does the administration want that? That's the big question. We don't know. I mean, none of the hires that have been made in the past really seem like we're going to go full-fledged. We're going to make that full effort to make this the program that it was under Pete Carroll or that it was under John McKay or whatever it was. The program that's won so many national championships, that's won so many Heisman trophies. Does the administration want that right now, or is it we would rather be an academic school now? We want to move towards being an academic school, and we've upped our prestige in a lot of things like that. And football just doesn't hold the same weight as it once did at USC.
Yeah, there's a lot going on at USC, a lack of leadership. There's a leadership void. There's no president. There's an interim president. And there's lawsuits going on from the medical school, lots of money that's going to need to be paid out. There's so much more going on. That's why it's just as much as USC fans are focused on this, we don't know how much focus there is there. I mean, when Lynn Swan was brought in, USC continues to hire people that have never done the job before. If you have a running a business and every time you hire someone, they've never done the job you're asking them to do, you're just hoping that it works out. There's some problems there. So there's a whole lot of lack of leadership going on, and that's why you're just not sure how this is going to go. And I think it boils down. You go back down to the coaching staff. It doesn't seem like, everyone sees problems. Like Colin Cowherd comes in here, he sees obvious issues. We see obvious issues. The fans see obvious issues. Everyone's on the same page. It's really hard to do to get everyone really kind of in sync. We don't see the coaching staff kind of admitting or acknowledging in any way that the way they're going about things is wrong. They just have to tweak this and do this a little bit better. And it just doesn't seem like that's the case. So I don't know. I mean, I think it would have to get we're still not sure what's going to happen because of all the lack of leadership. But obviously, the more this team loses, if they lose against Arizona State and get killed by Notre Dame, and maybe then there's more and more pressure going to go on. Then you kind of have to do something. But if it's forcing Lynn Swan's hand or whatever the administration's hand, and you have this lack of leadership, they might not be able to go out and get an A-level coach because of that lack of leadership, because the president's not going to be able to sign off on getting a big name. You might have to go the same route you've been going the last few, where you're getting basically hiring someone that no one else was going to hire.
Yeah, even if Lynn Swan says, I really want to make a move, I want to go out and try to get whoever it is, the biggest name coach it is, I want to make an offer that Pete Carroll's going to leave the NFL and come back for. Is he going to have the money to go do that? Who's going to sign off and say, yeah, you have a blank check to go do it? Well, is it going to be the interim president? No, the interim president's not going to say, yeah, go spend as much money as you want. Or, yeah, pay whatever buyout Clay Helton has. No. So, how much is Lynn Swan's hands tied by this? How much is he, because obviously he's a football guy. He sees that things are not going well. He's been on the sidelines for these games. So he can tell, that there has to be something different done. Does that have to be everyone fired? I don't know. I don't know what he's thinking in that regard, but how much leeway does he have in the administration? How much budget is there to, okay, well, we have this, we can go get this coach, or we have to find, we had to penny pitch it, whatever it may be. If we go that route, and then maybe it's looking at, all right, what date does the buyout become less? What date is because it's a private school, you don't have all the details of the contract to be able to say, okay, well, if they get to March 1st, then the buyout becomes half, or whatever it is in that regard. So there's a lot of things we don't know in that regard, and we won't really find out until kind of after the fact in those, and until you see like, oh, suddenly USC hired somebody big if Clay Helton is let go. So those are the things you don't know. So right now you have this coaching staff.
Yeah,
it's true. Before we get into questions, Shotgun, do you want to talk about your little conversation with Neil Callaway about the run game?
I'll check out the Periscope questions here.
I asked Neil Callaway, I said, what's going on with the offensive line? Why have you guys been able to have success? And he just was not ready to admit that they have not had success. He said, we've had some success. We obviously haven't won every battle, but we've had some success, or we've had success. So I then asked him, how do you determine success then? And he said, by watching the tape and seeing who did good and bad. So he really didn't give an answer to it. I asked him, have you been successful despite not being able to run the ball? He said, we've had some good runs and we didn't. There's some times we got beat at the line of scrimmage at the point of attack, but we had some good runs.
You could count the number of good runs on one hand, like literally, right? Yeah.
I mean, there were 4 runs over 5 yards. Now, the longest of those was not a 70-yard run, a 55-yard run, a 60-yard. No, it was 12 yards. It was the final play, the offensive play, where Vi bounced outside and ran for a touchdown. Besides that, there was no
garbage time.
In garbage time when they're down 20 points.
The best run.
Their best run was when they were down 20 points. They had no other runs of double digits. They had 5 runs that were negative yardage. These are all just the design run plays. Now they had 8 yards a couple times on scrambles with Matt Fink. They lost a lot of yards on sacks, but just taking the design runs did not run the ball very well. And he just was not ready to admit that. So I wrote about that today. You guys can check it out on USCfootball.com. It has quotes in there from Clay Helton as well about what he said earlier this week about how they were going to focus on the film instead of practicing more. They're going to be hypercritical on the technique, and that's a potential positive. I don't think you should take away practice time, but yes, you should be hypercritical about we got to get our hat on this side of the defender. We got to do this. There's a lot of things that can still be done. And it's just kind of baffling that no one is willing to say, we stunk.
Yeah.
We stunk. We've got to get better. Now, Clay is the one guy who said, it's on me. But he has not really had an answer for what they're going to do to fix that, besides we're going to look at the film.
Yeah.
And I know that's becoming a kind of a meme with USC fans that, we're just going to look at the film. But that's really all he said. There hasn't been, we're really going to – and how much is a coach really going to tell you, all right, this game we're going to put an extra fullback in there or anything like that? He's not going to tell you that stuff, but you can say, we've got to get better at this thing.
Yeah.
We're going to spend
you can admit, hey, we sucked at this or whatever. Like, this was awful. Like, we had offensive linemen facing backwards on every run. Like, stuff like that you point out, And I think hypercritical is one thing, but if you're learning how to run block and you're going into week 9, it's like you're in the middle of a marathon and someone's teaching you how to tie your shoes. Like, what is going I don't know what I just made that up. Is that good? But you get that feeling like, why is this happening now? Like, this should have been happening in fall camp or something.
And it can be as simple as, like, we got to get more physical, so this week we're implementing this drill. Like, it doesn't have to say that you don't have to give up a game plan, but you should change something and say, all right, we're doing this different, we're doing more of this. We decided every time we mess up, we're going to redo a run or whatever it may be, but it just seems like there's no solutions from this group besides looking at it on film and trying to teach it up again, but not teach it up on the field necessarily with extra drills or different drills. It seems when things are going wrong with the defense, there's more of that type of stuff. We didn't tackle well in
There's
space.
fixing, there's-
Usually we'll go to the tackle dummies, or we're facing a team with quick passing attack, a lot of hands up drills. We're trying to bat balls down, that type of thing. On the offensive side, not exactly the same.
Yeah, there seems to be a denial in that sense. But let's go to Facebook questions. We're already 30 minutes.
We got
into the
plenty
show.
on YouTube as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the questions are popping. We have a question from Alejandra who says, "How does the offense look with Jack Sears?"
How does it look? Like, we've seen like 2 practices of it. I think it's going to be similar to what you see from Matt Fink. And I thought the offense is coached much better when Matt Fink was in the games. Like, it looks like a cohesive, like you're trying to accomplish something. There's like a plan in place. Like on the defensive side, you might not always agree with what Clancy's doing, but you always can say like, oh, here's his strategy, here's what they're doing. You don't necessarily see that on the offensive side, but when Matt Fink was in, and I think the same thing with Jack Sears, you'll see hey, here's what we're going to try to run. We're going to try to do some different things, protect him a little bit, as opposed to this wide open, just let the quarterback go win it for you.
Yeah.
And JT was so good at that in high school, where he could call the plays at the line of scrimmage and he could do that. But I just don't think that you want a true freshman coming in and forcing him to. Now he's not doing exactly that, but it's been more on him to win the games
Yes.
rather than we're going to design stuff. And with Matt Fink, they had the most innovative play they've run this season on the goal line, first time in I think 4 years that I've been charting every formation that they went with 3 tight ends, 2 running backs, no receivers. So they had all 3 tight ends in. They had fullback at Vi, and they had Stephen Carr. And they motioned Stephen Carr out. They faked the ball to Vi, a pop pass over the top to Tyler Petit for a touchdown. That's the most creative thing they've done. We have not seen that during JT's time.
No.
I mean, they do some different things, but it's like it seems like they realize with Matt Fink and Jack Sears that, or at least with Matt Fink from what we've seen, that we got to help him out a little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas JT is like, they throw him out there like, we figure he can do it. And JT is super talented. JT is going to be able to do that eventually in his career. I don't think it's yet that time for him with the way the offensive line is playing in the run game in particular, because they're not getting those. If you get 5 yards on first down or you get 7 yards on first down, it opens up the playbook so much more. That you can go to pistol, you can play action off of it, you can throw a little dink to the tight end, and you can pick up 3 yards on it. It's a first down. It's much different than you do that same thing. You pick up 3 yards, and now it's 2nd and 7 or 3rd and 7. And you're like, well, now we're behind the sticks. We got to try to throw it. We're going to protect him. Now we're leaving 7 guys in to try to protect. So there's a couple routes out there, and now they're dropping 8. A lot of things changed in that regard. It seems like with Matt Fink, we're going to help him out a little bit more. We're going to try to scheme some more things up that we haven't shown before. So it just seems like maybe that's what we'll see with Jack Sears.
Yeah.
Maybe that's probably a positive for the offense.
No.
Yeah. Ellis also said that they're going to play to Sears' strengths since he doesn't have a lot of reps since he was the 3rd string quarterback. And he said that he's more mobile. They're going to try and use his legs. But the caution you have to take is that he's also, if Jack Sears is the starter, he's also the only healthy scholarship quarterback. So you're not going to have him running around out there and potentially getting hurt, and then you put in Holden Thomas, a walk-on, in there. You don't want to do that.
No.
We have a question from Gerald who says, from your experience and knowledge, how would you rate this team compared to past bad seasons? What is the worst SC team that you remember?
Oh, gosh. Okay. Back in 92, I think it was, with Larry Smith. So I was a junior. It was a weird year. USC beat number 4 Penn State in the Coliseum, and then lost to unranked Memphis State at the time. They're now just called Memphis. So that was from one week to other. Like that's kind of typical of, yes, they were still a talented team. They could beat a top 5 team and then lose to a really crappy team. So, and I think that was a 3-8 year, if I remember correctly. So that was pretty bad. I think the issue with this team is I believe there's talent on this team. I mean, there's 5-star guys all over the place. I think there's a lot of future NFL players, and they're not playing up to that potential. I think there were some Hackett year teams that just looked like they would have a couple stars, like you could have a Troy Polamalu or Carson Palmer, that guys are just going to end up at SC anywhere, but not necessarily as much depth there. They've had some really good recruiting classes. I feel like this is a team that another coach could take and be close to a playoff contender.
There's talent. There's plenty of talent on the team. And I've said it several times. If the offensive line plays better, the team plays better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can run the ball for 150 yards. That's not a great number. That's a decent number. If you can run it for that instead of -5 against Texas, and it just changes everything because then you can do more play action. Then you can do a lot of other things with the offense, and then that's when you get those big shots because you go play action, you suck up the safeties because now they got to play in the box a little bit more, and you throw over the top and you get those big plays, and that's what you're not seeing from this offense. It's when they stack the box, you're definitely not running, and Utah showed that you can stop them with 6 guys in the box, so now you can't throw over the top. They were able to, unless Michael Pittman goes up over 2 guys and do it, which, hey, Michael Pittman was doing everything in that game.
I think USC is running for 116 yards a game, and they're like 111th in the country of 128. 129. I mean, it's really bad, like really bad. This is not tailback U anything close to it.
3.7 yards per run, which is below 100th in the nation out of 129 teams, I believe it is.
129, yeah.
Which is followed by Washington State, I think Rice. Like the teams that are following them were not very good. Were not what you would consider rushing teams. So they're just struggling there. If they get that fixed, I think it changes a lot. I still think if somehow that happens, this team could easily go on a run still.
Yeah.
I keep saying it, but I mean, you say it enough, it just becomes, it's repetitive and it's boring because it's the same thing. If it's not happening, it's not happening.
We had a quick Periscope question if you want. Jake Wall 96. Will Biggie, Iman Marshall, shadow N'Keal Harry? Do you think he'll do that?
I didn't get a chance to talk to Biggie. I kind of wanted to see what he had in store for N'Keal Harry. We didn't really see it with Laviska as far as that. And Laviska's a big, stocky guy as well, and they can break tackles. But I think it's a little bit different because Colorado moves Laviska around so much, whereas Poindexter at Arizona, Biggie did shadow him some. He's another big receiver. So I think you might see it some. I don't think it'll be an exclusive thing.
Yeah.
We have a question from Linda who says, since when is it okay to be satisfied with average play and such small goals each week at USC?
That's the big problem. I mean, I think that's what some of the USC fans get upset about is when the team isn't playing well, and Clay Helton will kind of refer to like still have control our own destiny to win the Pac-12 South. That's not the case anymore, but you could still win it. I think he's talking. I mean, that's a goal for him, and I feel like when you look at the Pac-12 South and it's not very good, everyone has at least 2 losses. The fans get that. That's not good enough. This is a team this year that should have been, they were favored to win the South. They're not favored anymore. But this is a team that should have been up there competing at a much higher level. You can lose to Texas, you can lose to Stanford, but you have to be competitive. They were not competitive in those games. They were not competitive against Utah. If you look at the advanced stats, they look at the stats at the end of the game and they give you a percentage of who should win the game. It was 100% Utah. Like USC they basically said the way USC played, they should have never won this game. Where like UCLA, they beat Arizona. Arizona was actually, if you look at the stats, they were the favorite to win that game and they didn't win. USC wasn't in the game against Utah. 27 first downs versus 10.
I mean, they were in the game. They were up 14-0.
No, but I mean,
at the end of the game, it wasn't close.
And it wasn't as close as the 13 points that was going on there. So I think that's what the big issue is that you got to set your sights higher than still being in contention for the Pac-12 South and looking horrible in the games that you've won and looking pretty bad in the games. I mean, the games you lost and looking sort of bad in the games you even won.
Yeah. We have a question from Troy, and it's kind of a theme that I'm seeing in these comments and in my Twitter mentions. Troy says, should we just shut down JT Daniels for the year? I think a lot of fans kind of are hoping for maybe a Max Brown, Sam Darnold situation that maybe somehow magically if you put in a different quarterback, this team will turn it around and be amazing, and I don't think that's the case. But what do you guys think about this whole theory about switching quarterbacks?
I think that to switch, it would basically just be as a, if you feel like this offense is not going to perform well, why have your future star, JT Daniels, in here? I mean, Colin Cowherd was in here. He said he's a quarterback that's capable of winning you a national championship. But the way the offensive line is playing, the way the team is playing, that's not really helping. So does it help you to have him get more banged up and more reps in this offense if you feel like it's going to change after the season? I think that would be the reason, not because you think Jack Sears is going to come in and play better, because I don't think he will.
I just don't think that, I mean, you run the risk of injury, obviously, whether that's anytime you step on the field, and it's a little bit exacerbated by the offensive line. But they played much better, so they've kept him pretty clean. except for a couple hits the last 2 games. He's been pretty clean. So I think you get him in there and you get him as many reps as you can, as you're still developing him towards future in his career. Chap asks the same question: if Daniels is clear, would Clay Helton still play him? Yes, he's their number 1
He's
quarterback.
going to play him, yeah.
And if Helton,
But I think you would argue, is he regressing, though? That's the part, like, with this staff. Like, if you're a fan, you're like, I'd rather him not play for this staff anymore. Like, that's what some people are coming down to. You know what I mean? Like,
who's going to determine, like, oh, we'll hold JT out because we're going to get a new staff?
no,
The staff's
they
not going to
wouldn't.
say,
No, they wouldn't.
let's get a worse option in a quarterback just to, so he'll be good for the next staff. Like, even if they were a lame duck staff, like they'd already been fired, they're still not going to do that. They're going to try to win.
Yeah.
That's what you try to do as a coach. You try to win. Now, sometimes it doesn't always look like that, but, they are trying to win.
We have a question from Steve who says, are offensive plays too numerous where players are confused as what to do?
It's not like receivers that are 5-star guys are running into. Oh wait, no, they do that. There's a lot of criticism. I mean, I feel bad. Like, I like T. Martin a lot. There's so much criticism coming at him. Everyone wants him fired and stuff. I don't necessarily agree with that. I'm not sure where the fault is. The offense is bad. Like, you can't score 3 points against Stanford. That's bad. There's a lot of data to prove that this is a bad offense. But where is it coming from? It's the offense. To me, it's more of the offensive design, and we don't know where all of it came from. Is this mostly Clay Helton, who took what he learned from Kiffin and Sark and put this together? It's hard to say. I don't think this is T. Martin came out and like created this offense and this is what it's all his doing. So the people that are kind of using him as a scapegoat, I don't necessarily agree with. It seems like the whole premise behind the offense seems to be the problem. And my guess is that's coming from Clay Helton, but it's hard to say. We don't know who's created all this and where it all came from.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the same vein, we have a question from Matt who says, is the play calling so predictable that opponents blow up the plays before they develop?
It looked like that last week. Now, some of the Utah plays just looked like they were guys, moving towards where the play was designed to go initially. I mean, one of USC's best plays was supposed to be a screen pass to Stephen Carr, and there were 3 guys already out there. There was supposed to be 2 receivers blocking. At least one of the receivers had already let the guy go by, and then the linebacker just was out there on Carr already. And JT was like, okay, maybe I'll try this other side. And he looks over, and Pittman's gone behind somebody because apparently USC has never looked one way and thrown the other way. At least that's what Jalen Johnson thought, because he did not move at all. Like, he was set in stone. It was, kind of miraculous for him that Michael Pittman stepped out of bounds. And I do think Michael Pittman stepped out of bounds upon rewatch. It looks like his heel didn't step out. And the referee was right on top of it. But he was like completely confused. Like, wait, they're throwing this way. He was looking that way. What's going on here? So he was not prepared for that. That was one of USC's best plays, was an over pursuit and you throw behind him. Now, if they game plan like that, you would say, wow, that's great play calling. If they're really over pursuing on something, and that's the problem with this offense, is that there's not always that mirror play. When you run to the right, where's the counter play to run to the left? If you throw a quick screen to the left, where's the fake to that to throw the other side, the alley-oop pass, whatever it may be. It just doesn't seem like there's always the complementary play to go along with it. It seems like a lot of time, and why it's called the gumbo offense, it's like, oh, we'll grab one from this formation, we'll grab one from this formation, we'll grab one from this formation, rather than, all right, we got 6 passing plays, we're going to run them out of every single formation, we're going to window dress everything, we'll move a guy in motion, we'll have 2 tight ends, we'll have, and have the same play, and we just run it really well. It just seems like there's, sometimes it's overwhelming the number of plays out of different formations, and I think that sometimes teams are keying on, okay, we've seen this formation before, and they're able to, attack those. Whereas when USC goes with a brand new formation, 3 tight ends and 2 running backs, Utah was not prepared for it.
Yeah.
So, how much it is combining plays that you already have with new plays out of the same looks is something that I don't know that we see a ton of.
Yeah.
Agreed. Steve wants to know, why are senior offensive line players playing so poorly?
It's a great
$1
question.
million question, Steve.
Yeah, that we would love to know that. I think there's been some really good positions where players have been developed, and there have been some others where they haven't. And I think in the offensive line is just, we haven't seen guys get a whole lot better and perform at, not just at a high level in college, but then and move on to the NFL too. So I think, Colin said this yesterday or 2 days ago, USC's recruiting offensive linemen at a high level, they're getting guys that Alabama or Ohio State or Texas wants. So it's not like the players can all be that bad, but they just don't seem to be getting developed.
I asked Neil Callaway, why does it seem like, when plays are unsuccessful, when they, runs are tackled in the backfield or whatever it may be, if there are guys looking back to play, they're not blocking someone, they're not on someone, they're not sustaining those blocks. First, when I asked him, why does it seem like they're looking back? Maybe he misunderstood the question. He said, I don't know about that. And I said, why are you not sustaining blocks? And he said, well, it's just a better effort and everything, but we've sustained blocks sometimes.
Yeah, it's like sometimes we've done it. Like, well, isn't it you're supposed to do this every time?
Consistency is key.
Also, he said that the offensive line, he said, there's always competition going on, but then when I asked if any of those, if they were considering any changes on the starting five, no.
That's what I don't understand. At some point, do you just try and get maybe Elijah Tucker in there? Do you try?
Mix it up a little. Just we talked about that a lot. This is a coach. I mean, and Colin didn't think it was like stubbornness, but there's just this you come up with a plan, and that's what the plan is, and you just stick with it. There's no altering it. There's no looking at the data that you just saw. If you're getting pushed around and hey, we're gonna do something different this week in practice. No, the plan was this. That's what you go through. These are the seniors. These are the guys that are going to play. You just go with them, and you could put Elijah Tucker in for a couple of series just to mix things up a little bit. They don't do things like that, so I don't know why, but that's just not the way it goes.
And that's to answer your question as well, Pat. He said, can we address the elephant in the room? Toa should be benched, and Elijah Tucker should be in the offensive guard rotation more.
Try changing his snap. But here's the thing. If you have your starting center changing the way he snaps the ball halfway through the
Week
season,
8,
maybe then he shouldn't be the center. I don't know. It's a weird thing.
It's just a grip thing. It's like kind of like a pitcher changing a curveball grip in the midseason. If you don't like it, something doesn't feel right. So I don't think that's a big issue. Yeah, you can change. Yeah, you can change grips.
No, I know. I'm not arguing over that. I'm just saying, when I talked to Toa, he was like, I have everything down except for the snapping, and it's like, well, that's your job as a center. I love Toa. It's fine. But I feel like maybe switching him to guard. I just feel like if your main job at your position is what you're struggling at, then maybe it's time to rotate something, or I don't know.
And we asked Clay Helton specifically, one of those weeks where he had a really bad snapping week, and he's our center. There's no question. So
Neil Callaway said, he was asked about Toa. He said he had 2 bad snaps. It was better. Obviously, that's not good enough, but it was better, so we'll continue to work it.
Yeah, I actually thought he played better on Saturday.
there was one snap where JT had to jump over his head. I think Chris had a picture of that.
He said, I do think it's much improved, though, other than those 2 bad snaps.
And I think the low one, JT might have had his knee on the ground.
No, he did a which shows you that he's learned,
that, we talked about this, yeah.
So he squatted down and like a catcher rather than, go into a knee. So it shows you that he's prepared for it now.
And the high snap was on the Pittman touchdown, so.
That was it. Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Southland Trojan on Periscope. Does anyone actually support this staff? At this point, is anyone even going to the Coliseum to support? Yes, people are going to go to the Coliseum.
Is it in support of the staff? Maybe not.
No, it's
they'll
not.
Support the team.
Yeah, when we have confrontations on our message boards on USCfootball.com, there's always this guy's good, this guy sucks, he should start, whatever it is. There's always a divide. There's always this side of the aisle and that side. It's just like politics or whatever. People if they wanted Max Brown to be the starter or Sam Darnold, you would always fight about this kind of stuff. What we're seeing now, which is not a very good sign for Clay Helton, is pretty much a sense, a sense of unity. That if there's someone that does support Clay Helton, they're not saying it. It's very few and far between. So I don't see a whole lot of support for this staff. So for us to get that kind of consensus on our message boards where there's always some sort of confrontation, the only confrontation now is people that always didn't like him are making fun of the people that used to like him and don't anymore. That's the only confrontation we see. That's not a good sign when everyone's on the same page.
You get to kind of get used to the people in your mentions, and I saw someone who was a pumper become really negative, and I was like, whoa, that's when you know when certain people change, you kind of lost the
the people that were he won the Rose Bowl and he won the Pac-12 and just got to give him a chance, they're not saying anything like that anymore. So that's, valid points, at the time, but the people that were critical were like, I'm looking at this team and I don't see the improvement. And you could look at but Clay Helton had some really good results, and you could rely on that as opposed to what your eyes were telling you. Now everyone's eyes are telling them, and the results are matching, so that's why you're kind of seeing that.
Yeah. We have a question from Edward who said, has USC changed the way that they practice, and which ways have they changed? I feel like the only thing that changed really is that they practiced less.
They're not changing the way. Like, I think they really came up with some plan back in July or August for what days they're going to practice, what they're going to do. And I don't think that's changed at all. Like, I don't think it's changed. I think they came up with that. Here's the plan. And it doesn't matter if 1 week you see something you need to correct. It's like, well, the plan in August was to do this, so that's what they're doing. That's just my feeling on it.
Pretty much the same. And we'll probably see next week will be no pads November.
Not almost guarantee you.
I mean, especially with the injuries they have
There
on
will
the
be no
defensive
pads
side,
November.
there's probably no chance they're
Yeah.
having pads on.
I almost expected no pads November to start this week because they started it early.
Well, that's because they had a bye week the last week of the season,
Right.
so they shifted everything up. But
That could have been a new tradition. No pads end of October, but
No pads Halloween.
so do you think next Tuesday will be the last full padded practice, or have we seen the last
what's
full padded
today?
practice?
Today is the 25th.
Wednesday is
I think we've
the
seen the
31st.
last. I think
It's still October next Tuesday.
that's October 30th.
Yeah.
No, I think, but the game's November, so
I don't know if there's a strict deadline. Like, oh, it's gotta be the November 1st.
Well, it's
should
no
we put
pads
some wager on it?
November.
No pads on Tuesday, October 30th.
It's probably gonna be that. but-
If they have three,
You guys buy me lunch if they do.
if
go
they have
on
three
pads.
more injuries, then they will go no pads.
I always buy you guys lunch, but I'll buy you lunch if there's.
Sure he
if there's-
does.
Do I not? Oh my God! I'll stop buying you lunch then.
Shotgun, stop ruining things for us.
But if they go full pads on Tuesday, or if they no pads, then you guys have to buy me lunch.
Okay. Let's see what you got us into.
I did not agree to this. That's all I'm saying. Andrew says, when was the last time we ran a reverse? Shotgun, this is a question for you.
They tried one this past game, and they lost 3 yards.
Yeah.
No,
They do
actually,
a lot of jets.
no, actually, I think they got like 1 yard off it. They actually ran a true reverse. They handed the ball off to
Yeah.
Vi. They flipped it to Velus Jones, and he ended up, because Utah was right on top of it. The defender on the backside stayed. He did a good job. JT couldn't even really get a block. He was out there, and if there's a little bit more room, then Velus can go around him, and he can get in the way and create a block. Instead, he tried to cut inside, and he got like 1 yard.
And I think it was garbage time anyway. It was like down by 3 scores or something. Like it wasn't like.
JT was in, so.
I feel like it was like late third quarter when where this game was going. So it was kind of weird. It wasn't like early on or anything.
Like we want to run
Yeah,
this.
they do a lot of the jet sweep stuff. USC running sideways has not been. They just don't block well enough to do that. So I think you should not do the jet sweeps. I mean, none of that stuff works.
Jason says, I personally don't see JT as a QB who could lead this team to a playoff spot. He has very bad habits that should have been fixed in high school, and he's not improving on decisions and throwing off his back foot, etc. What qualities do you guys see that we don't?
Well, that you don't. I think I wouldn't put you as in a we category because I feel like you're in the minority on this one. He's a super talented quarterback. I think everyone we've talked to has seen that. He was amazing in high school. I don't know who would do well in the mess that's going on at USC right now. Dependent on the quarterback, I don't think you can do that.
Yeah. Now going back to our last question. Velus Jones' reverse was in the middle of the third quarter, the first play of a drive that ended in a 3-and-out. He also had like a faux reverse where they sent him in motion one way and they ran him back the other way and handed him off the ball in a jet sweep when they were under center, and that lost a yard.
But at the time, they were down 3 scores or something when they ran it, I believe. So it was like, why are you doing this now? Like, the offense isn't working. Like, is that going to spark the offense? Or
0 yards.
0 yards. Okay.
Shotgun, JT Daniels, what do you see in him?
His ability to usually be very accurate. And that was the thing that was kind of surprising about this Utah game, and some of his passes were not accurate.
weren't, yeah.
And the thing that's kind of concerning is that the JT Amon Ra connection was not exactly there this week. They tried. He was 0 of 10 or USC was 0 of 10 on third downs with JT Daniels in the game. He was 0 of 5 trying to throw to Amon Ra St. Brown. 4 of those were incompletions, one of those being an interception. and it just didn't seem that was there. I think it was the way that Utah was kind of funneling the middle of the field because they knew on third downs that USC was going to try to go to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and with them playing cover 2, they were able to keep the linebackers in the middle to kind of clog up that area. They were dropping guys back, defensive linemen and different things like that. So they did some different things. They confused USC, and a young quarterback, that's going to happen. You're going to get confused by new defensive schemes and stuff. It's the coaching staff's job to help. All right, this is what we see on this, and then be able to make some corrections throughout the game. That hasn't always been the case this season. Now, I think he has a great deep ball. Now he underthrows a lot of them, and I know some people get upset about that. But then if you overthrow it, then you have the Amon-Ra and Velus Jones deep balls in the third or fourth quarter of the Colorado game. You underthrow it because that gives them guys a chance to catch it, especially your big guys like Michael Pittman, because look what he does when he's underthrow it. He goes up over guys. So I think he throws a good deep ball. He's got good arm strength. He's very aware in the pocket. He does a good job. And he's still learning a lot of the the nuances of college defenses versus high school defenses. In high school, he was so good at picking a defender and be like, all right, we're picking on that guy. Because I've seen what he does on tape. I've seen what they're going to do with this one person, and he would call 3 different routes on one side of the field and say, all right, we'll basically pick on this one defender, make him choose something, and then I'm going to throw it to the other guy. So he does a really good job of that. He's very cerebral in that regard. He's going to be really good. This is a learning process. It was going to be a learning process regardless, but the fact that he's getting beat up isn't helping expedite that learning process. Because I think he took enough hits, especially early in the season, that he started throwing off his back foot a little bit more. His mechanics started faltering just a little bit. Things that he didn't necessarily do in high school, and that was kind of the difference. His sophomore year, his junior year of high school, his sophomore year they lost twice to St. John Bosco. In both of those games, Bosco was able to get pressure on him, and he becomes a little bit different of quarterback. He's got to grow through that. His junior year, his offensive line was ridiculously good. They had 4 guys that have already gone on to Division I football. A 5th guy, Miles Murrell, who will be one of the top offensive linemen in California next year, even though he just broke his broke his leg, unfortunately. But they kept him in the pocket. He had plenty of time to throw. That was the difference. I think he's a little bit different quarterback when he gets hit a little bit, as almost all quarterbacks are, especially young freshman quarterbacks, and I think he's growing through that right now.
Ty has another question for Shotgun. Sorry, you're probably winded after that. He says, what do your gut instincts tell you about Callaway and his coaching? In your interview with him, he seemed lost and uninspiring.
I mean, he's kind of a curmudgeon when it comes to the media anyways. He's been that way forever. He coached at Georgia. He was a offense coordinator there, and I heard plenty of stories previously from people back home. He was at UAB. You could watch some of his post-practice interviews and stuff, and he's the same person. I don't think it's suddenly he's disinterested in football or anything. Yeah. He's still on the players pretty hard. You can hear him yelling still. It's just that it's not working. Whatever is going on there is not working right now with that group. Now, maybe it's an internal leadership thing because they don't have a true vocal leader in there to tell somebody if they're not doing something right. And Callaway's yelling at everybody. Maybe somebody has to come over and grab somebody by the shoulder pad or whatever and say, you need to do better or whatever it may be. It's just not working as a group right now.
Yeah, that's the theme. It's not working. That's what's going on.
I mean, he's had really impressive players in the past. I mean, Bo Jackson, he's a pretty good guy. Sean Alexander at Alabama was one of his running backs. At Georgia, he had David Green, who had the SEC record for wins when he was in school. He had Matthew Stafford. So he's had impressive guys and that have put up good numbers behind his offensive lines or behind his, as an offensive coordinator. So it's been there in the past. Now, you can make the argument that the game has passed him by. I mean, the game is different than it was in 1985 with Bo Jackson. That I can't speak to necessarily, just as far as, and I don't really know the offensive line schemes he was running at Auburn. I would have to, find some SEC Network, ESPN Classics or something to see exactly because, the scheme they're not running now is more of a zone scheme. Wasn't as prevalent at that time. I don't know my 80s football that well. I was still being born.
It's okay. Yeah.
Still being born. Andrew says, is USC becoming too much like the MLB, just looking for a home run versus small ball? Nice crossover, Andrew.
I like that. But I don't like the baseball reference because he's going to now talk about baseball.
Baseball's great.
I do. I like baseball. But that's what I played growing up, too. No, I think that's true. I think you need to to have everything work, like on the defensive side of the ball, you could have some kind of breakdown and someone still makes a great play. It's hard on the offensive side. You need everyone on the same page. If like half the offensive line isn't doing their job, that play could still work, but just things kind of.
I would say it's the other way around.
You
On
think-
offense, like you can just throw it up and somebody makes a great play. Whereas defense, if you have a bust, then you have a guy wide open and he runs in his zone.
No, but like sometimes there's a bust, but then a middle linebacker comes and makes a sack like that. I mean, it's you want it obviously for both sides of the ball. You'd like everyone on the same page. You'd like everyone doing, and I think on the offensive side, it's hard to do that play in and play out for this team for whatever reason. They could get 2 plays that are good in a row, and then screw up on the third. And we've just seen that they've just not been able to sustain those drives. And I think that's discipline. That's just, play design, how it all works and how they're called. It's just not set up really well the way this offense goes. It just doesn't seem like there's a high percentage of chances that you can do these things right. Like you got to do, if you watch a good drive, 11 plays or something like that. Not that everyone has to do everything right on every play, but you got to do, a lot of people got to be doing stuff right on each and every play, and they got to work. And it's this USC offense doesn't do it. They might do it twice in a row, and then they have a huge screw up, and you lose 5 yards, and then you punt.
Home run versus small ball. The best team in baseball right now is the Boston Red Sox. They're up 2-0 in the World Series. They're one of the best teams at hitting the long ball while also with 2 strikes being able to put the ball in play. Their GM has talked about that's our philosophy. That's something you have to do. You can go for the long ball. You get a turnover. You go for the big play, or you go play action on first down. But then when it gets 3rd and 3, you got to be able to pick that up.
Yeah.
And that's what USC hasn't done. I mean,
They rely on the long ball. There's a lot of strikeouts when you're hitting, a lot of home runs, and that's where you're seeing. Where, like you said, with the Red Sox, they're putting balls in play. So to be able to do both is obviously ideal. USC's good at one and not the other.
Yeah, I mean, JT Daniels could throw for 50% and throw for 400 yards, and it'd be a great day. But on those 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 5, that's the completions you have to have. And if you go 1 for 3 on the deep ball, that's still a pretty good percentage.
Yeah.
Now, if it's 3rd and 10, that makes it a little bit more difficult because they're going to play more off of it. But when you have opportunities, you can go for those long shots. It's not bad that if you miss a long shot every once in a while, or you miss 2 out of every 3 even, as long as you're picking up those shorter plays as well. If you keep the drives moving, then you have more opportunities to take those shots instead of 54 plays on offense.
Yeah, Daniels was 6 of 16. Obviously, that's not going to get a whole lot of stuff done. And 0 for 10 while he was in there on 3rd down. So.
And running the ball on 3rd and shorts, they did what? Not much at all.
No bueno.
No bueno, indeed. We have a question from James. He's trying to make it turn the tide a little bit.
Turn the tide, James.
Positivity. He says, what are some positives in the program that we can highlight? Which individual players are standouts to you and why? And he says, mainly for shotgun, but we're probably all going to answer it, James.
We'll start with Jay Tefele. Awesome game for him.
Yeah.
Going back against his home state, Utah, and a school that not too far from where he grew up. Having the sack fumble. I think there's young guys on that defensive line that are continuing to get better. I think Christian Rector had a really good game in this one. He had an opportunity to get more playing time when Poor Augusta went out, and he did as much as he could in that game. With as much plays as he was having to play. So I think those are a couple just off the top of my head from that defensive line. I'm really high on Kenechi Udeze. I know that group hasn't done as much this year as it did last year. I think there's young guys that are only going to get better as the season progresses and as their careers progress as well.
Yeah. I think having 4 true freshmen being able to play and be big contributors, I think that speaks well to some of the young talent on this team. I do feel it's a talented, much deeper squad than what we've seen in the past, and there are definitely positives on this team, but unfortunately, every positive kind of looks like you could turn it into a negative. Like, then why aren't they winning if they these guys are this good and things like that? But there's some really good players on this team, and I think there's some units that have performed well. I mean, a guy like Michael Pittman, blocking a punt that set up one of the scores, taking away a sure interception and turning that into a touchdown. I mean, he's basically half of USC points were because of hero plays by Michael Pittman. I mean, you could just say right there. So there are some definitely some bright spots you can kind of put your arms around if you're a USC fan. We just haven't seen it all kind of come together and turn into a win.
Special teams has been much better the last 3 games. Pass protection has been much better the last 3 games. Those were really bad early in the season. They've been better. It's getting the run game going. The offensive line getting the run game going changes everything. It's the one piece that's still missing.
Iman Marshall too. I think he's played a lot better. Coming back for his senior year, I think is going to help him a lot. So there's definitely been some. A guy like a Jenny Harris. Getting on that plane after his father dies. He missed one day of practice this week, but he had that pick six the other week. There's some guys that I think some seniors that have just been balling out and playing well. And it sucks because you don't always focus on them because as a whole, the team just wasn't performing well.
Yeah, a guy like Jake Tavele barely gets talked to after the game. USC kind of ushered him off because he talked on the radio on a phone call, but he barely gets talked to after having a monster game. When you don't
score, he ran away from people.
When you don't win,
as a 320-pound guy, like running away from dudes. Like
when you don't win, you don't get to highlight as many of the positives.
Yeah.
It is unfortunate. We're reaching the top of the hour. Any rapid fire questions we can get
All
off?
right, let's go through the coaching rapid fire ones. Where does it start here?
Oh, geez.
How can the O-line coach think that we're progressing with those stats? I don't know that he said that they're progressing anywhere, but he may have.
Said they're doing some things good.
Successful. That's essentially the same thing.
He's just not saying the performance was as bad as everyone else sees it as.
He says he always says he thinks they can get better. That's at least he is always true about that. How does it work for Clay to be fired? Does the administration tell Swan to fire him, or can Swan just fire him by himself?
It's basically it's Lynn Swan's job, but usually when you're making a major decision and you're going to talk
It
about
involves a lot of money.
the highest paid, private, the highest paid employee in California or whatever, basically what you're talking about. Usually you got to get some sign off.
And which boosters want to be able to the ones to donate that money if that becomes an issue.
Yeah.
Swan calls Clay into his office and says, "You have one more year, but you must replace T. Martin and Neil Callaway after the season. What's the percentage that Helton fires them versus quitting?"
I think he would fire him.
You got to, right?
Yeah, he's not going to quit. No, yeah.
Clay's not going to do that.
Don't go down with a sinking ship.
No, he's
save
not
yourself
gonna-
first.
No, he would. Yeah,
Yeah, save yourself.
Save yourself.
he would have to probably be forced to do it, but yes, he would do it to
We
save his
had
job.
multiple examples for who could come back: Pete Carroll, Ed O, and Kiffin. Everyone wants those names back, but that's
Stop
in the
with
past.
the retreads. Yeah,
Exactly.
You got to get away from what you've been doing wrong. And
Pete Carroll wasn't wrong, but he's not coming back either. This one.
Stop hiring familiar names.
This
Hire
one works
someone
great
good.
then. Ron Major wants to know, where's Norm Chow now? And why not hire back some Pete Carroll staff to relate what is needed to play like that again?
No.
Because don't do that. No.
And because the game is a little bit different than it was then.
Go wash your hands and don't touch the keyboard for an hour. Because you typed that.
Wow.
That is not good.
What does it take to fire T. Martin? Don't know. We're not firing people here.
Some good
Is
rapid
Clay's
fire
unwillingness
stuff,
to
guys.
make positional coaching changes due to the administration lack of financial support, or is it that no quality coach is willing to come to this dumpster fire?
No, that's bull. Pucky. No. But if Deala McCullough came to,
Wait. Could it be financial though?
no, I think it potentially could be financial.
Okay.
But talking about the coaches don't want to come here and that's total bunk. Like Deala McCullough, when we talked to him, he was like, "Oh my God, I get to come coach at USC." If I call a recruit that's a five-star running back, he calls me back. When he's in Indiana, he's working his butt off trying to get guys to come there and stealing guys from LSU. There's huge advantages to being at USC. So no, it's not that coaches don't want to come here. Now, if you think it's Clayton's the lame duck and some, there's some potential for that, but no, that's crap.
James Winter says, adjustments? He said, repeat like Allen Iverson, like practice. Adjustments? We're talking about adjustments? That's a good point, James. We haven't really seen those.
Their adjustments are like your little screwdriver just kind of turning a little bit, like where you need to overhaul. Like you need to rebuild your engine, and you're talking about putting on a new gas cap. That's the kind of adjustments that are good.
Alberto, why would they need to simplify things for a QB that's been in the system for 2 full years? That's a valid question, but first time on the field, much different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sean says that we forgot about Jake Olson when mentioning positives.
Super
Good point.
positive. Yeah.
True.
Oh my gosh.
It's sad that USC can't close out games so that they could use Jake.
Hey, I said it to Dan yesterday. I was like, they could have taken him to Utah. He could have gotten that game. That was a blowout, too. It doesn't always have to be a blowout win. It could be a blowout loss, too. Brody asks, any chance we see more two-back and Thor packages versus ASU? There's a chance.
Yeah.
We haven't seen the Thor package, though, in, I think, 3 games, so...
This will be this will be a game where it's just going to be close and like NFL-y. So yeah, you could see
Helton
that.
said whatever it takes. This is a game that you do whatever it takes to win. So
James, is Sears ready for this?
Don't know.
We'll see. Even Brian Ellis said we'll see what happens on
I
Saturday.
mean, he literally, if you go to practice, it's not like he's working in there. You got JT Daniels getting the reps, and then some Matt Fink reps, and then maybe every once in a while a Jack Sears rep. So it's not like it's been for the last 2 months or whatever. He's done almost nothing in practice.
Is this like when Barkley got hurt as a freshman? Who came in? Was it Corp still?
Aaron Corp, yeah.
Is it going to be like that, or is it like when was it Mustang that came in late in the season that one year? Like, do you feel like it's like that where the offense just can't do anything passing wise?
No, I kind of feel like it'll look like a little bit more Matt Finke, and that's been pretty good. It's just the offense with JT Daniels is let him go be a hero, and the offense with Matt Fink is coached. So I think it'll be coached, and you'll see some decent things happen.
Hinky for Matt Finke. Jonathan asks, do you guys think ASU is going to do what USC does to beat them with throwing the ball to N'Keal Harry and just beat USC? So I think he's just saying, are they just going to take deep shots to beat? You watched more ASU than I have.
I mean, it's potential. You got to see how Manny Wilkins kind of comes around. They relied on the run a lot more. They've had some really good games with Benjamin. So I think it's going to be more of a balanced sort of attack and see how much they can get Harry in the picture. So, but I do expect Manny Wilkins to play better in this game. But I think USC is going to get after him and stuff. If USC can score early, then it allows Clancy to do some more fun things on defense. It's just a problem. The defense comes out balling, playing hard, and then after a while, you're just kind of it's just tough because the USC offense goes 3 and out all the time.
And if you're super tired, then you can't force those third and longs. Then you don't get a different package in. You know, there's just different things like that. I mean, Utah stayed in a bunch formation. USC actually used their base formation, base package on defense, where 3 down linemen, as much as they have the entire rest of the season combined. So they played more base than they did nickel this game. I think it was 40-something plays or 30-something plays. So they play a lot more of that because of those bunch formations that Utah was running. We'll see what they do this game, how they, and if they can sub more. And last one, as Adam says, has it hit rock bottom where coaches are believing their own lies?
Are they lies in their mind, though?
I don't think they feel like they're lying, but they feel like it's just a different point of view. It's a different perspective. You go in and you're in that room, you're in that office, and they feel like this is the right way to go. Clay Helton has, it was terrible in 2016 when they were 1-3. And he stuck to his guns, and they end up making a run. And that's what you kind of look for. Hey, we can get this turned around. We know we've done it before. We can do it again. That's in their mind. It's just from the outside perspective. Everyone else looking at it is they don't see that, So I don't think they look at that. They're lying to themselves. But are they ignoring some glaring problems? Are they not? You're in the therapy session and you're skipping over the big problems you're truly having, and you're just saying what you want. Yeah, maybe there's some of that, but I don't think they feel like they're lying or anything like that. I don't know.
And Boogeyman says that Sears is already the GOAT. Jack Goat Sears, he says. He thinks he's going to line him up.
Wow.
And he asks how many bites does it take to get to the center of a Tusa Roll Pop, which is a question for next time.
Brian has a funny one. Who wasted timeout first, Clay or Herm? So I thought USC would waste some timeouts in the first half against Utah because all the pressure and everything. Turns out if you don't block anyone, you don't have to call timeouts. So they didn't call any timeouts. They didn't have a lot of penalties either, but they weren't really pushing the envelope to I guess trying too hard. They didn't really try that hard, so I guess not too many penalties.
That was one of those games where there weren't going to be a lot of penalties.
Yeah, sometimes you'll get a Pac-12 crew and it's just they're not going to call a lot.
The Michael Pittman touchdown, there was actually a man downfield. It was an RPO play. Could have called that. There's always stuff you can look for in the trenches as far as holding and stuff, but that was kind of an obvious one.
The Tefele, I think Kanai Mauga had a big hand to the face or something. But there wasn't going to be a lot of penalties called in that one.
We have a couple of questions from people who heard what Colin Cowherd had to say, how Clancy Pendergast doesn't really like recruiting. And they're like, how could we have a defensive coordinator that doesn't like to recruit?
Coordinators don't always have to be huge recruiters, but you need the other staff members to be. About half of the staff isn't really fond of recruiting. So that's a problem. You need more people on staff to be. If you have 1 or 2 or something, that's fine. But it's really a bunch of them that don't really recruit that much.
I don't like recruiting either, but give me that salary, I'll do it.
Yeah. But for a coordinator, it's not as huge of a deal. But it's imbalanced. There is a few members of that staff that carry the recruiting torch. And it's not really fair to them because they have a lot more work to do than the guys on staff that don't recruit that much.
True. Alrighty. Do we need to do predictions?
Oh yeah, we should, right? Is it a?
It's a Thursday. We're supposed to predict on Thursdays.
Jonathan asked, would it
Shotgun.
shock you guys if ASU won? Of course it's not going to shock us.
No.
We've seen this team
No.
play.
Dude, I'm telling you, like they've not given
I
up more
think
than
it's a
28
perfect
points.
storm. It could be.
Yeah, I'm
just not confident in this offense and their ability to produce drives,
gonna-
sustain drives.
What's the spread?
I think it's like 6.5. USC favored by 6.5, or at some point that's what it was. It's ranged around. I'm gonna go out and say Arizona State wins this one, 28-21. This is like NFL-y score. I'm gonna take the Sun Devils to win.
F it. I think USC is going to cover the spread.
Whoa!
That's
What's
your
the
problem.
score?
That's your problem.
Maybe it'll be the same as yours, but they'll go cover.
Just
28-21, whatever. 28-20.
Arizona State has not given up more than 28 points all year. So if you think USC is going to score in the 30s,
29 to 20.
29, okay.
This is bad.
4 field goals there. 5. How many field goals would that be?
And a safety.
3 field goals. They'll get 30.
What do you think, Keely?
I think ASU wins this one. I don't know why it's a gut feel.
I just don't like that ASU team. I've watched them play and I'm just not impressed.
But that's not like, this is not me having confidence in ASU. That's me having lack of confidence in USC's offense.
I didn't like Utah either, but I still thought they were going to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same reason.
I don't like this Arizona team at all. From what I've only seen a couple games, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
They do some things well, and it just doesn't seem to match up with what USC doesn't do well. So that's why I'm like,
You have a lot of SoCal kids coming back.
it's like homecoming for a lot of these dudes. Like a Merlin
Yeah.
Robertson dude who's balling out.
yeah, like last year when they wanted to prove something in Tempe, and what happened? Oh, they were up by like 40 at halftime, and then they
USC played, and last year USC played their best game, or you could argue one of their best games against Arizona State, right?
True. It's a completely
is there a
different
little-
team, but it's true.
Yeah, Herm's gonna be mad about oh wait, he wasn't there. Yeah, so
It's clearly a different team too because Porter Gustin played the first half.
true.
True.
They don't have
You also have Sam Darnold. You had a lot of different people.
Yeah,
in
but
that
Porter
way.
Gustin is obviously the difference maker because we've seen what the defense does without him. Once again, we saw it again last week. Gave up 41 points without him. They've been really good with him.
Yeah,
They don't have Cameron Smith this week. There's a lot of pieces missing. Marvell Tell did tell me that he expects to play yesterday,
all
Well,
right.
that's good.
even though he has not practiced this week yet.
That's good news for USC then. Alrighty. We will see you guys on Sunday to break it all down. And depending on if it's a loss or a win, we'll see who's right out of the three of us. We'll see. But that's Shotgun. That's Ryan. I'm Keely. We'll see you guys on Sunday.